Welcome to Cellular Healing TV, episode 115. I'm your host, Meredith Dykstra, and we have Dr. Pompa here on the line, of course. And today we have a very special guest, Dr. Joseph Mercola. So very excited to have him on Cellular Healing TV. Let me read you a little bit about Dr. Mercola before we get started. Dr. Mercola is board certified in family practice and has treated tens of thousands of patients before shifting full-time to running his website, Mercola.com, which is the most visited site in the world.
Most visited natural health site. Most visited site in the world is Google.
That's
more than Google.
Right. Most visited natural health site in the world. All right, we've got that. His current passion is using diet to optimize mitochondrial dysfunction, which is actually the topic of today's show. So we're so excited to have you, Dr. Mercola, Dr. Pompa, of course, and we're going to talk about mitochondria today. So let's jump in and get started.
Yeah, no, listen, I love this topic, and Joe, we got on this topic, and you could barely pull us out because I've had last several shows where this mitochondria thing keeps coming up. I even interviewed Bruce Lipton.
Oh, it's great. I haven't talked to Bruce in a long time.
Great conversation. Of course, the mitochondria comes up in every conversation that we do, and even when Thomas Seyfried, we both know. Of course, in that show we were talking about damage to the mitochondria and how it's leading to not just cancer, in his opinion, but many other diseases, all the unexplainables, the fibromyalgia, the chronic fatigue, people that can't sleep, people that can't lose weight, you name it. I believe the mitochondria is at the heart of most conditions. You believe the same thing. So I love some of this new information that you're talking about. What's going on with certain fats at the mitochondria. You're going to talk about that today, and you better talk about the Dexcom that you're wearing right now that measures glucose all day. But, Joe, we had a very fascinating conversation about the mitochondria, cell energy in relation to all these diseases, and I want to just pull you right into it and just launch it. Why is the mitochondria under such attack today, and how is it leading to so many conditions?
Well, it's primarily because of our lifestyle, and we're exposed to so many items, primarily in our diet, that increases inflammatory responses, that increase reactive oxygen species, which secondarily cause free radical damage and decimate mitochondrial cell membranes and mitochondrial DNA, which is the whole issue. So the primary way is your diet, though. So if you can and almost everyone is consuming foods, not mostly your viewers, of course, because they're educated and understand this, and many elite athletes do, because that's the really hidden trick now, especially endurance athletes, are understanding that upregulating the enzymes to burn fat as fuel is really the key to success in their endeavors athletically. So but that's the key, is to really burn a fuel that's clean and not going to generate these excessive reactive oxygen species, which is going to damage your mitochondria. And you're right, mitochondria is at the core, I believe, of most everything. Yeah. Now, interestingly, I think there's probably a small segment of your readers who don't understand or believe this, and I would recommend, and I don't know if you've done this already because we've talked about it, but maybe you let me know, is to watch a movie called The Fault in Our Stars.
No.
You haven't watched it. You got to watch this movie.
Got to watch it. It's on my list.
Yeah, it's the only caution is that you have to watch it with a box of Kleenex. But it was this movie and Travis Christofferson's book, The Tripping Over the Truth, The Metabolic Theory of Cancer, which I think is it's far better for the average reader than Thomas Seyfried's book. Thomas Seyfried's book is almost for researchers, It's good, but it's really too deep. But having read his book and watching that book, The Fault in Our Stars, which was the most emotionally impacting movie I've ever seen in my life, literally my favorite movie of all times, was what catalyzed my reawakening and passion in this area, and knowing that I had kernels of the truth for long times, thanks to Ron Rosedale, who's my personal mentor. He's a physician, and many of your readers know who he is. But thanks to Ron, but I hadn't really fully embraced it, and it just had the epiphany. The lights went off, and I just have been nothing but unbelievably passionate about this topic ever since, because I know it's the core, the key that's going to rescue the vast majority of people from devastating health outcomes.
Yeah. I have something called my 5 R's of cellular healing and how to fix the cell, and it became a roadmap for when I'm teaching doctors on, look, if you don't fix the cell, you're not going to get people well. And R number 3 is restoring cellular energy. So, my passion into the mitochondria, and many of our viewers are doctors, and many of our people, most of just the general person looking to regain their health or get better health, they perhaps don't understand what the mitochondria does. So as a reminder, this is where we produce every bit of energy, cellular energy, either in the form of glucose, sugar, or fat. And most people today, in all the conversations, really are broken, Dr. Joe, as far as their mitochondria's ability to use fat. So even when we're putting people in ketotic states, which should force the cell to only burn fat, they still have difficulty. What is the process? What's going on? I mean, you've found a lot of things dietarily, that could be interfering with this. I mean, share some of your findings with us in this area.
Well, there are many environmental exposures and lifestyle choices that will cause mitochondrial damage. But the primary one, at least I believe, and I could be incorrect, but because I'm just only have been really delving into this for the last 6 months, but I've read a lot of studies on this, so I've developed a fair level of expertise. And it's my impression that the primary issue is the food that people are choosing to eat, which causes these inflammatory conditions. But when you have those food choices in conjunction with exposure to toxins in the environment, to lack of sleep, improper exercise, EMF exposures, food allergies, there's a whole variety of other variables that synergize to make that food choice much worse. But if you can get the food choice right, it's going to make every other problem better, because it's going to be easier to treat, because you've got the fuel that you're burning efficiently. You're not generating these excessive reactive oxygen species.
Yeah.
So it's all about making sure that you minimize those net fiber or net carbs, which is the total carbs minus the fiber, and have the highest percentage of high quality fat you can. Typically 80-85% fat. And then really minimizing your net carbs to under 30-40 grams, and your protein to 1 gram per kilogram of lean body mass, which most guys like you and me is under 70 grams.
Yeah.
Maybe even if you're smaller, 60 grams, and if you're a woman, it might be 40 or 30.
Yeah.
That's not a lot of protein. It really isn't, but it's more than your body needs. It really is.
Yeah, no doubt. Those are my protein recommendations as well. For people that don't know kilograms, you're safe at about half. Half your body
weight, yeah. But you got to convert the lean body mass. I mean, a lot of your readers are lean, like we're probably 10% fat, or less. But so if you're 20% fat, then it's a different number.
Absolutely, yeah. Obviously, someone who's 300 pounds and obese would not want to eat half their body weight. But yeah, that's for a lean person for sure. But so the increase in protein, we know, can damage that mitochondria and even damage the mitochondrial membrane. I think that's a big misnomer that people have. Because
remind me to send my mentor, and I mentioned earlier, is Ron Rosedale, and he recently presented at the low carb conference in Vail, I think in February, and his video of that presentation, which is spectacular, probably the best video presentation I've ever seen him give, is a magnificent understanding of this, and where he really expounds on mTOR, because hardly anyone understands mTOR, and the reason we're making these protein recommendations is because of its impact on mTOR, and mTOR is probably even more important than insulin and leptin, which hardly anyone understands. Right. But it is the most profoundly important signaling pathway when it comes to health.
Yeah. So I have two major questions. First of all, what does a life in Joe's life look like? Meaning that, I've been on the phone with you. You're walking the beach. I mean, you're doing steps every day. So I know your exercise, but you can tell them. But dietarily, what's it look like, Joe? I mean, you gave those recommendations, very similar to what Meredith and I do exactly. But tell us what it looks like.
Well, I moved to Florida. I'm a Chicago native, and that is not a healthy place to live, in no way, shape, or form. But when you live there, you don't realize it. So fortunately, I met a woman in my life who really was magnificent. We've been going out together for 7 years, and she convinced me to move down to Florida, although I convinced her to move to Illinois, which is a mistake. She wisely moved back, and then I followed her, and have been down here for 4 years, and I live really close to the beach, literally 2 to 3 minutes away, and I ride my bike every day there, most every day, and 95% of the time, and walk for an hour to 2 hours a day. And that time I'm able to read and have phone calls, and so I'm multitasking, because not many people could have the luxury of taking 2 hours a day and just walking. at least a busy professionals wouldn't. So I'm able to justify it from that perspective. And I learned, I mean, it's just been the most magnificent transformation just doing that activity. But with respect to your other question about the diet, I one of the important, because I'm writing a book on this, I'm not sure what the title of the book will be, but I hope to sell at least 10 million copies and maybe 100 million at some point, because I really believe that the information we're talking about today is going to literally transform the entire healthcare system. Because once people understand this and apply it, and the devil's in the details, correctly, the whole life's going to change. It's going to be transformational. So what I think an important part of that process that I'll describe in the book and briefly mentioned here is intermittent fasting. We are going to recall it peak fasting, because there's a lot of different ways you can intermittent fast. 5 days on, 2 days off, every other day, water fast, a whole variety of things. But our fast this is one of the reasons I've got the Dexcom, which is a 24-hour continuous glucose monitoring system that you insert a sensor underneath your skin for a week and change the sensor every week. So that's why I got it, and I'm going to convince you to get one too, because it's just a magnificent. You can get so much data information. I'll tell you when it's.
My fingers are sore. All the pricking for.
Yeah, it'll cut down your finger pricks dramatically. I mean, I'm only having to prick my fingers, 2 to 4 times a day. A lot of times you have to do double sticks, because you have to, when you have the Dexcom sensor, it will measure 24/7, but you have to calibrate it twice a day. So you're still doing at least 2 sticks a day, and if sometimes that calibration stick is off, you can say it's so far away from what your sensor is showing that you have to do it again. You say, oh yeah, it was wrong, because those glucose sticks give you false readings sometimes. So.
Yeah, the viewer. So what Dr. Joe is saying is he has a device that is implanted that measures his glucose at least 120 times a day. Correct?
Well, that's the most that it could. When you change your sensor, it goes offline for 2 hours, and then if your receiving device, and this is my receiving device, it's called, and then you can press this number here, and it will show you what your glucose is. And in my case, I don't know if that shows on the screen, but oops, that's upside down, so that's why it won't show.
There it is, 87.
87, yeah. So that's a little high. I'm not sure exactly why, but typically it's like low 80s, and does at night. I've seen it go as low as 40. At night, and that's usually 2 o'clock in the morning. So who's going to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning to measure the glucose? You shouldn't do that. You should be shot. So, but exactly where it is, what time. I've noticed mine sort of. The lowest point is typically about 1 to 2 o'clock in the morning. Then it gradually rises as you get close to waking up, because your cortisol is rising.
That's right.
Really cool. I mean, it's just so great to tap into your biology at this level.
It is, right? It's fun. I mean, one of the things I love to do, you get that morning glucose and ketones, and I get so much information about my clients' health, because as they're intermittent fasting through the day without eating, we should see the glucose drop and the ketones rise, and you're able to see everything that you do, because a lot of people get very confused. They see their glucose rising after exercise. Well, that's normal. Well, you're able to see what
a little bit, but it shouldn't rise that much. I mean, in my experience, it's maybe 10 at the most, 10 milligrams per deciliter. But then it comes right down. So here, the intermittent fasting I was referring to, we renamed it peak fasting. It's because we've redefined intermittent fasting. So it's fasting for at least 12 hours, ideally including 3 hours before you go to bed, because the last thing you want to do is eat a lot of fuel and put it on board your body when you don't need it, because you're going to generate excessive reactive oxygen species. You do not want to fuel your body when you don't need it. And the time you need it least is when you're sleeping. That's when you're metabolically most inert or least active. So we do that. So you wait at least 12, 13 hours, and then extend it to about 18 hours. But how do you know if you're going to stop your fast at 13 hours, 14, 15, 16, or 17? How do you know? When do you start eating is the question, right?
Right.
I think I figured it out, and I figured this out myself. I mean, maybe other people did too, but I certainly hadn't read it, or no one told me. So I spontaneously identified this process, and basically it's serially measuring your glucose. And your glucose tends to rise about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and it comes up a little bit, maybe 10, 15 points, but then it'll stabilize. In my case, it typically stabilizes in the high 70s, low 80s. And then all of a sudden, within about a half hour, it'll start to rise dramatically. I mean, it'll go up 10, 15 points. And
after you're awake. after you're awake, you're saying?
Oh yeah, yeah. You know, and typically it's about 14 hours after eat. 14 to 15 hours is my personal frame
Okay.
right now. So, and now that I've got my meter, I just check it. You know, I look and say, okay, well, as soon as it starts going up, I'm checking. There it is. Okay, time to eat. And interestingly, when you start to eat, you would think you're eating food. Your blood sugar should rise, right?
Right. Yeah.
No, it goes down.
Ah.
It literally goes down because what happens is you're stopping the catabolic process. I believe I've got to talk to Stephen Finney, who I think is.
Yeah. We know him. Yep.
Yeah, you give me his contact information, please, because I don't. He seems to be the brightest guy. He's certainly been doing this for decades. The guy is really bright.
Yep.
I know he works with Volek, but I think he understands the biochemistry and the physiology a little better. Because I've talked to Jeff before, but I need to talk to Stephen. So I want to, because it's this whole issue of gluconeogenesis, and when you have gluconeogenesis versus, you know, because you can get the substrate either from glycerol, which is a breakdown product of triglycerides, or you can get it from protein and amino acids. And I think my guess is it's coming from amino acids, which would be deleterious and counterproductive to fast that long. So I don't believe in these long-term fasts that people promote.
Let me ask you this question. So if you get into 14 or 15, it's going to be a little different for everybody, because I can even tell with the class I'm working with. So how do we figure that out? I mean, that's the thing, you know? Yeah.
Or you can stick yourself every 10 minutes, you know, if you want, which is a little cumbersome. And actually, for those of the, I think a lot of high percentage of your viewers are doing this. I made the assumption that the AccuScreen, one step. What is it? The one that people AccuCheck, is that it?
Precision, yeah. AccuCheck's the
precision that checks the ketones. So that's the one I got because everyone's suggesting it. But then I went on Amazon and got these great reviews and found, hey, you can get the Bare Contour, not the Contour Next, although it's the same price, but the Bare Contour, which I found to be a bit more accurate, for $7. That's what a meter costs, and the strips are 25 cents. So that's about half the price of the other version. So you feel a little less financially restricted to measure your glucose a little more when it only costs 25 cents.
That's glucose. Does it do ketones?
No, it doesn't do ketones. No, but you can do the ketonics, right? So you know the ketonics, which is a great device. I started using this and I stopped. I didn't realize you can quantitate the color levels, so it's pretty darn accurate. To me, once you calibrate, there's very little benefit of sticking yourself for ketones. And this thing costs $125, but after you pay that, that's it. You can test your ketones the rest of your life for no charge, and it's so easy. Oh, here's the other thing that I did to quantify it, because it measures the acetone in your breath, which is, you know, one of the ketones. But if you blow longer, you'll give it more acetone. So you have to calibrate it. And I found for myself 20 seconds of a slow, easy out breath is what it requires. So I have a timer every time, and I always stop it at 20 seconds. So it's consistent. Okay. So I'm not doing 15 seconds one time, 25 seconds the next, which is going to mess the results up.
I kind of just go to exhaustion every time. But
I think you're going to get a falsely high reading. That's not what they recommend. I need to probably talk to the guy who invented it, but they say just do it comfortable. So you can play with it, but just measure it. You know, measure 20 seconds, measure 30 seconds. You know. But I think going to it probably gives you consistent, but I think you're going to get a falsely elevated level, would be my guess.
Because you have more acetone,
Yeah, more acetone, right.
Yeah. So, okay, so what did you find? I mean, so great. Yours is around 14 or 15 hours, so therefore you started eating again. Now here's one of the things. People become more efficient, Joe. So in other words, you know, after a period of time, people oftentimes they can't go a little bit. So we look at their glucose, because I was doing the same thing. If I start seeing things change where their ketones are dropping and the glucose is rising, that's typically the time to eat. However, as they get more efficient, now what they weren't able to do, they're able to do. So now they're able to go 18 hours and everything's good. So how do you see that change in you, that you're getting?
I haven't seen it, but that is an issue. And, you know, Ron Rosedale is really big on the concern. I mean, Dominic D'Agostino is probably the leading researcher in this area. I have enormous respect for him. But his focus is largely on ketones as a result of the way he's evolved or transitioned into this field. But it's not, the ketones are important. They definitely provide some magic, but it's not the ketones themselves. It's your body's ability to upregulate the fat-burning enzymes that creates the ketones is really the pure magic. Ideally, you can take exogenous ketones, but you want to make the ketones yourself.
I actually asked Dominic that.
Yeah. I'm going to dialogue about them with him too, because I'm not sure that I think, and I just want to download his brain because he's got so much information. I mean, you guys are just a literal encyclopedia in this area. I don't know anyone that has a more broad-based, comprehensive biological and biochemical understanding of what's going on in mitochondrial health. I mean, he's it from my perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, no. So, one of the things I was concerned about is taking exogenous ketones, and viewers, where that's ketones where you can literally take them orally as opposed to breaking your own fat down and making them. And my concern was to him is, well, if we're taking them, are we going to shut down fat metabolism, our body's ability to burn fat and make its own? Well, he did say, Meredith, right? I mean, he did say yes to a point. That could happen by taking too many exogenous ketones. He wasn't sure at what point that it would shut it down, though. So I think it'd be
so and that would be, you can make them through coconut oil. That will help somewhat, but then you can do MCT oil, which is a lot simpler, easier, and less expensive than using the ketone esters or the ketone mineral salts. But MCT has two versions. One is the regular MCT, and the other is the MCT that is primarily caprylic acid, or C8. Regular MCT is a mixture of C8 and C10. And the shorter change the fats, the more rapidly they'll convert to ketones. Right. And interestingly, they tend, not only MCT, but even coconut oil, because it's medium chain triglycerides, the shorter chains of the fats don't require L-carnitine as a transport molecule to get those fats to be burned in the mitochondria, across the mitochondrial membrane.
One of your findings, you were finding, because you experiment so much with this stuff, that taking these short chain fatty acids such as coconut oil or MCT oil with certain omega-6 fats or polyunsaturates it was an issue. Talk about that, because that would damage the mitochondrial membrane.
Well, Ron Rosedale and I came up with this, and this is just a simple understanding of basic physiology, and that when you're burning fuel, your body's going to preferentially burn the shorter chains first when you eat fat. So if you're taking MCT and a long chain polyunsaturates like any seeds, or flaxseed, or even fish oil, you're going to burn those fats first, and then you'll tend to integrate those other fats into your cell membranes, because you're not burning them for fuel, because they're hanging around longer, and the cells are going to integrate them. So typically omega-6, there's a lot, if you read the new science on this, there's a lot of concern about there's been a lot of concern about excessive omega-6 for a long time. That's because of the refined vegetable oils. But even healthy omega-6, from seeds, fresh seeds and nuts, organic, and take them that way. If you have too much of that, it has this omega-3 called, I said omega-6, but there's omega-3s in there too, which is ALA. But no, actually it's the alpha. There's alpha-linolenic acid and alpha-linoleic acid, but both of them can be problematic. They get integrated, and when you have too much in the mitochondrial cell membranes, it makes it more oxidizable, and more susceptible to damage, and then that causes lots of problems. So if you take the omega-6s by themselves without these short-chain fats, then your body is more likely to burn them as fuel than to integrate them into the cellular mitochondrial cell membranes.
Right. So basically what you're saying is, okay, if you're eating a bunch of nuts and seeds with coconut oil, that's a bad idea.
Well, not necessarily. It could be a bad idea. You have to look at the whole picture. Nuts are less problematic than seeds, at least the nuts I recommend, macadamias and pecans, because they don't have a lot of omega-6. They're higher in monounsaturates, typically oleic acid. So, I think oleic acid is a shorter chain, so that will tend to preferentially burn before the omega-6. I think it's a C12. I could be wrong on that. It might be C14. So anyway, so you have to be careful. But as an artifact of that, maybe now is the appropriate time to go on what I've just discovered literally 2 days. This is just like fresh off the mind, because it's not even written down yet. That's
great, man. First year on Cell TV, right?
Yeah, great stuff. So we all know that you're going to really sabotage your ability to to burn fat and keep low glucose, which is an indirect reflection of low insulin, low IGF-1, low leptin. So the reason I love the Dexcom is because it gives you the blood sugar level. Now, ideally, it would be nice to have a blood insulin, but that technology doesn't exist. So what I noticed, my carbs, my net carb intake is typically under 50, and many times it's under 30 grams a day. That's not a lot of carbs. Last time I measured my insulin level was 0.2, so I have incredible insulin sensitivity. So when I take a piece of fruit, you should be able to have some healthy fruit. I think Dominic agrees with that. Everyone I've seen and read on this believes that some fruit in moderation is reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, okay, let's have some fruit. I take a fruit, and I did this like a half a dozen times. I have a piece of fruit either before or after exercise, right? My blood sugar jumps from 80 to over 100 and stays there for 6 hours. Wow. 6 hours, okay? And I was just so frustrated. So I just did a test. So I took 35 grams of mulberries. I've got a magnificent place where I live, and I have a regenerative agriculture experiment. I put in the 500,000 pounds of wood chips. I'm creating magnificent soil with just literally tons of earthworms, and creating an environment where I can grow trees. I have 60 fruit trees that generate thousands of pounds of fruit a year. So I'd like to access some of it because it really tastes good and it's all organic.
Yeah.
So I had some mulberries because the first fruit coming out this season, and I had 30 grams, an ounce of mulberries, which is like blueberries. It's relatively low in net carbs, right? 30 grams. So I have it, and I take them. I usually go for that walk I mentioned, 1 to 2 hours, and then I think this was Sunday. Yeah, Sunday. Was it? Yeah, Sunday. Sunday I went for a 2-hour walk. Maybe it was 2.5 hours, and I started it like a half hour after the walk. So I was, my metabolism was revved up, and I took it, and rather than my blood sugar rising 20-25 points and staying up for 6 hours, it rose 10 or maybe 7, stayed up for an hour, and then dropped below when I had the fruit. Unbelievable. So then I said, I got to test this again. So this morning I did 70 grams of mulberries, and it went down even lower. Didn't budget. I wanted to
test it with different types of exercise, higher intensity, because could it have stopped gluconeogenesis?
I don't think so, but I've tested it. Like we'll work on the gym, I do my strength training and things. I test the fruit before or after, and every time it ruins my blood sugar. It just ruins it, just decimates it. So I don't know how or why, but I think I talked to Ron Rosedale about it, and he's convinced it's true. It's from his understanding of the physiology is that if you want to eat fruit, I just told my father this morning. I called him up. He's 89 years old and a type 1 diabetic, but he's really well controlled. He keeps his blood sugars around 80. And to eat the fruit during exercise, that is a time to eat your fruit.
During it. Not necessarily before. Well,
not before, not after, during. Preferentially towards the beginning of the exercise, so that maybe 1/4 of the way through.
You might be answering one of my big questions that I have, right? Because I read all these studies to show that exercise fasting is key, raises glucose, right? The question that nobody can answer, and that I get all types of conflicting information from studies is, when do you eat? You know what I'm saying? So when do you eat? During, after? And like you, I've measured my glucose trying to figure that out. I measured after, I ate right away, measured my glucose, got a response. Not one time have I tried to eat during. And of course, something like fruit or something would be about the only thing.
Well, fruit is a really high glycemic load. That's the issue. So I think normally when you and I eat, we're eating 85% fat, 80% fat.
Yeah.
So that's great because your body's revved up. It knows how to use those, burn those as fuel. So you're just turning it. So in my experience, it doesn't really matter when you're eating that much fat. You can eat before, after, during. It doesn't really raise my blood sugar much. I'm talking only a few points. I mean, my average blood sugar throughout the entire day is 78. I mean, that's what the average is now. 24/7. I want to see what yours is. It would be really good.
That's how you want to do Dexcom.
Well, Ben Greenfield. I'm sure you know Ben, right?
Yeah, we've interviewed Ben.
Yeah, so Ben is. I've convinced him. He's picking one up next week. So you guys are going to be in a race. So Ben Greenfield's. I convinced him to do it too. So
Yeah.
I want some. He's a really good elite athlete, so he'll generate some interesting data. But I think he's going to find the same thing. But I want him to try the fruit thing, and you can try it, and then we'll see. You have a trial of 3 people, because I'm right now with an N of 1. We need an N of 3
Yeah.
with people who are clearly fat adapted. Now,
Right.
I don't know. I suspect that this would work in people who aren't fat adapted because it's the same physiology, but it may not work as well, or may not work at all.
Right.
We don't know.
Yeah.
But there's not many people using this Dexcom who aren't type 1 diabetics. There's very few of us who are pushing the envelope. But I heard Tim Ferriss is, and maybe Peter Attia is too. I don't know that for sure.
Yeah, because folks watching, the Dexcom is used for diabetics.
Yeah, type 1. And it's not cheap. It's
Yeah.
not cheap. I mean,
Right.
this little puppy, the cheapest you can get it is like $3,000 for 1 year. That's a better version is like $4,500 because it has a less dangerous form of wireless communication between the sensor embedded in your body and the receiver.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so you have to be willing to embed the sensor. That's where Pompa backed off. And,
Yeah, I can walk you through it. It just doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
Would there be any concerns with EMFs with the sensor?
Yes, that's what I said. Yeah, the less expensive one it's called the G4. Oops, let me just get rid of that. Sorry about that. This is a spam call, so normally it's gone. Sorry about that. Okay, so the G4 uses radio frequency to communicate, and that's the older generation. The new one is G5, and it uses low-power Bluetooth, which probably is 95% less power. And the concern about EMF is directly related to the power in there. So it's virtually a non-issue from my perspective, but it is a concern. I mean, I wouldn't do this the rest of my life. I think, there is a small, but when you have a very healthy lifestyle, you can take these minor hits and survive really easily. In fact, it might even be something that improves your health because there's this process called hormesis, where you have small doses of the challenge that actually make you healthier. And exercise is a great example of that, as are many of the supplements we take, like resveratrol or berberine.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, but I think the data is really, helpful because, like you, I have all of my clients and doctors testing glucose, testing ketones, and to be able to look at what's happening, because we know that people do get more efficient at the mitochondria and burning fat for energy, and being able to see those numbers is how we know how long we can intermittent fast them and how long we can push them, and otherwise, you're right, we're not getting the benefit that we're looking at. So. I think the information that you're getting from that is going to be valuable for all of us. And even the exercise quandrum that I've had is, when do you eat? We know that, hey, eating exercise while fasting is great, but when do you eat?
I'm not concerned about that. I think my view is, I'm referring to this as peak fasting. That's what we're renaming it, because it really refers to a very precise form of fasting that I just described. So when you're peak fasting, I think that's going to provide all the benefit you need with respect to increasing mitochondrial autophagy or mitophagy and mitochondrial biogenesis. I don't know that there's a massive additional benefit to do that exercise when you're in a fasting state. It may be even counterproductive if you've exceeded the ideal threshold for the time of fast that you need to be engaged in.
I'm reading the studies just on the growth hormone spike and the testosterone spike that you get from that exercise fasting, so because it's an adaptation. So
but those spikes may not be healthy. I mean, they may be good for a catabolic response in building muscles, but is that there's two approaches. One is to improve the way you exercise at athletic performance, and the other is to improve longevity. And they tend to be mutually exclusive. They're not always the same.
No, absolutely. I mean, a lot of the bodybuilders now are doing intermittent fasting, right? So they're
right. Absolutely, yeah, because they know it works. It works.
Absolutely, and they're realizing, hey, the old days of eating 5-6 meals a day are gone. I mean, it's
well, that's another interesting component. Let me share this with you too, because I do think you need to eat 5 or 6 meals a day. Let me tell you why. Now, because Dominic only eats 2, and I disagree with it. I can't wait to engage in a dialogue with him about this. But I think ideally, and I've shown it on myself, you want to have like 6 small meals a day rather than 2 big ones. And why? Especially if you have renal dysfunction, because it's too much of a protein load. You want to give your body a gradual sip of fuel throughout the day rather than just assault it with these large things. It's definitely going to be more toxic to your kidney. There's no question about it. When you throw all that much nitrogen at it, I don't think you should have more than 10, 12 grams of protein, maybe 15 grams of protein in one meal. Anything more than that is you are potentially damaging your kidney.
And you're talking about once you start eating, you're like, because a lot of people, when you look
Yeah.
at culture, so when I went to Africa, for example, they didn't eat all day. They would go out and hunt. They would do different things. Now, once they start eating, then they eat, right? So you're saying eat those meals that like that. Once you start eating, eat many times during that time.
Right. Still do the
Yeah.
peak fasting, that 13 to 18 hour where you're not eating, but
Right.
have those 6 meals spread out in that eating window.
That's
So
good.
that doesn't mean you're making more meals necessarily. Make your meal, but split it in half and have one now and have one later. Like I misgauged the time of this. I was going to have this is my lunch. You can see it's got peppers in there and anchovies and some bacon and eggs, and it's really delicious. I was going to have that like 30 minutes ago, but it's no big deal. I'll have it a little later. So when we finish the interview, so I made it. I have half now and half later. I make my breakfast smoothie, which I never really answer what I eat. I have the breakfast smoothie, which I'll tell you in a moment. I call it the fat bomb, and I got that from Dominic. So when I make one section and I have half of it, and then an hour and a half later I'll have the other half, and I just split it up. So it's not any more difficult to make. You know, it's not a time consuming. You're just consuming it over less food over a longer period of time.
The athletes find that they have to do that because
Yeah.
if they're eating in a 5-hour window or whatever window you're eating in, right? 6, whatever it is, you know, you have to to get in what they need. They have to kind of eat, you know, that time. So otherwise, because you can only eat so much at one meal. You know, it's funny.
Well, I would not necessarily agree with that, because when you're having 85% fat, you can eat a lot of calories real quickly, a lot.
I get full. That's me. I like try to eat. It's like, oh gosh, I just can't. I wish I could eat more. But yeah, I mean, so that's interesting. But I recently read a study. I'll have to find it because my concern is when you look at some of these tribes, they tend to eat a lot at one time. So what about that? We used to always say, hey, you can only consume at least 25 grams. Gosh, Rosedale said it for years, right? Per meal, you know, don't exceed maybe 15 grams of protein at a time, right?
Yeah, I think 15 is a lot more reasonable than 25. 25 is a
for a
really
bigger
significant level of and I did not know this. And I have kidney challenges due to the mercury extractions I had, or amalgam extractions. So I have to be careful. But doing this, I've had the best kidney function test I've had in 20 years. I mean, it's basically normal test at this point, which is phenomenal. I mean, I never thought I'd see that.
Is the fillings. That's what got me. But anyways, so let me finish. So in the study, it was interesting because they said because of the growth hormone rise, that you're able to more safely take in more protein in one meal. And that's what they were finding. So it's an interesting thing. So they once again, though, the intermittent fast actually protects you because you get the higher levels of growth hormone. Now you're able to actually take in more protein in one meal. So, hey, it's interesting, but I think that no matter what, if you do the fast, whatever it is, that you're able to go, if you're going 18 hours on a fast, you know, eating the rest of that time, I think that's very easy for people. And I tell people, go ahead, eat as much as you want during that time. And that's typically...
Well, the caution and the revision of that would be to you eat as much as you want. I mean, I was losing weight. I wasn't that heavy. I mean, I started this whole process somewhere between 180 and 185, and I promptly dropped 20 pounds. My waist size went from like 34, 35 to under 32, which is crazy.
I got very lean myself, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, that was too much weight loss for me. So to maintain it and actually get back to 170, 180, which is where I'd like to be, I'm up to 4,500 calories a day now.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot of calories, but you know, it's easy to get down. I mean,
yeah, I don't take in that much. Well, I mean, the days I exercise, I do long bike rides. I definitely eat a lot more. So typically on those days, I may only go.
Yeah, but how do you know? We should talk about that. It's Chronometer, Chronometer.com. Chronometer, the single best nutrient tracker on the web, free.
No doubt.
You got to use it. You know, to me, it's almost impossible to do this type of program without some type of nutrient tracker to figure it out. I mean, I know to the 10th of a gram how much protein and how many net carbs I have every day. Like today, I'm a little bit high. I'm at 49.8 because of those mulberry experiments. 49.8 net grams of carbs and 70 grams of protein, which is a little high. I like to keep it under 60. So, and the beautiful thing about that is that you enter the stuff before you eat it, so it gives you a little flexibility. Say, oh, I'm a little bit high in protein, I'm up to about 80, so you can knock something out and not, you can take it back more or less.
Yeah, no, it is. Chronometer is great. My clients love using it. It's so easy to use. So you see the graphs and everything, and
it's wonderful.
Yeah, it really is helpful. And
yeah, we're working with Aaron, who's the guy who founded the site. He's been developing a sub program for us that's even more specific for this type of thing.
I was just going to say that the only warning is some of my clients it almost is for people who are like trying to lower their calorie intake and try to lower their fat.
No, actually he offered a revision to the whole program now. You have to go into the sub menus. I'm going to actually make on my list of things to do is make some videos on how to use Chronometer. But everyone you can actually go in there and customize it for ketogenic, so that you can give 1 gram per kilogram or 0.8 if you have cancer, or 0.6. So you can actually get net carbs, and you can give yourself a bonus if you're exercising. So there's a lot more flexibility now. He's really improved it in the last 3 months.
Okay, so one more thing, on the ketones. What are your ketones running? I know you use the breath.
Well, here I don't measure them that frequently, and here's the position that Ron has. Ron Rosedale, is that he doesn't think that the elevation of ketones is that efficient, because ideally, think about this, if you upregulate your fat burning systems, then ideally, in a perfect world, you would burn those ketones as soon as you manufacture them, meaning that your ketone level in your blood would not have that high to rise, okay? Because if it's rising high, that means you have a relatively inefficient system to burn those ketones.
You're not using them.
So as you get more proficient at upregulating these fat-burning systems, your ketone levels are not going to be that high. They're going to be lower, actually, and that's actually a good thing. That means you are really burning fat. And I think the only way to answer that is to go into the lab, and do some real sophisticated metabolic experiments to, find out what your I think it's EQ is, which is the rate at which you're burning calories. And I think perfect fat burning is 70 or 7.7, and burning carbs is like 1.0. So, that's a subtle details, but I think so that's the answer. I mean, I think the highest ketones ever I think I had was maybe in the 2s. I've never gotten to 3s or 4s. I don't take exogenous ketones, but I don't think that's necessarily bad. I think as long as you could radically lower. I haven't played with lowering my net carbs to under 20 grams. Usually it's the lowest I go is 30. So maybe it'll go higher if I go to 10 grams. I don't know.
It won't, because I've done it.
Okay.
No, it really doesn't. So when I first started, this was years ago, really putting myself into ketosis and ketonic states, my numbers were really high. I even saw numbers in the 5s.
And then they dropped.
Yes, and then now,
exactly what I told you.
Like you,
this wasn't a setup. You didn't tell me that before. This is the first time I heard it.
But when I'm in ketosis, I'm always over 0.5. Unless I have.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've never dropped out of 0.5.
Right. But I'm typically around 1. Honestly.
Yeah. Right. Between 0.5 and 1 is typically where it fluctuates. Right. But it's unusual to go above that. Now, I'm sure you've seen this too. Post-exercise, it will tend to rise quite dramatically. That's when you'll see the highest levels post-exercise.
Yeah, absolutely, of course. Yeah, and again, especially when you're in a ketonic state or you're intermittent fasting. But so I see it, and I will see it rise as I intermittent fast towards the afternoon. And I watch my glucose go down. My glucose will drop even oftentimes in the 50s, low 60s, and my ketones are up. Especially if I don't eat for 24 hours.
That's a long time. I can't wait to get. I want to see what happens to your glucose when you're fasting for 24 hours.
Glucose, again, I'm not as accurate as with the Dexcom, but I'm sticking it. My glucose will continue to drop. But like you,
wow.
Times when I see my glucose starting to rise, but I typically can associate that because on those days I know it. I just kind of feel it. But it's right. As soon as I feel that going on, then I typically will eat sooner. But I don't, some days I go sooner, sometimes I go later.
Yeah, I really think this Dexcom is the bomb, for those of us who are obsessive-compulsive body hackers, is to figure it out, because you really want the lowest glucose level possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
You really do. Ideally, you do not want to ever see 100 or higher glucose reading, and ideally it's under 80, 85.
I think one of the things that we owe to Seyfried too is that he showed, hey, it's not just about the ketones, like your ketones, your brain and cells won't even use the ketones if your glucose isn't low. So the idea is as long as we keep the glucose going down. If the glucose is up, your ketones could be up, but then you're wasting them. They're going out your urine and you're not utilizing them. I presented that at the seminar.
Let's not make the mistake that traditional medicine uses and use glucose as the only monitor. We're only using it because we don't have an easy way to measure insulin. So I mean, ideally, and that's what they don't understand. They want to lower the type 2 diabetics' glucose level, and they give them all this crap, including insulin, when they're just treating the symptom. When the glucose goes down without these exogenous agents, it means that your insulin level is good and your IGF levels are good. That's what you really want to get low. The signals. And glucose is just a marker for that. That's all. Yeah, it's a good one, but it's not as good as measuring the signals themselves, like insulin or IGF-1.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Absolutely. So it's all we have. Like you said, it's all we have. Is we can look at that and guess and typically understand a little bit of what insulin's doing. But look, this stuff works. I think that we agree. It's like, look, it's this is why
it will change your life, and when the culture adopts this, it will change the entire face of medicine.
I mean, this is the problem.
No doubt in my mind. No doubt.
Can't burn fat at the cellular level, right? They can't burn fat, and that's the problem. So therefore,
wait. Let me refine that because I think that's an incorrect statement. They can burn fat. They just can't burn it as their primary fuel. Almost everyone can burn fat, but they don't burn much. They might burn like 99% less than they can. But you want to burn that you want to primarily burn fat. You want to burn that as like 90% of your fuel, 95% of your fuel is fat.
Fat burns clean, glucose burns dirty.
Yep.
So because they're using glucose as their primary energy source, they're driving inflammation in the mitochondria. And which is leading to them not being able to think. They have brain fog, they have lack of energy, they don't feel well, and God forbid, if they do skip a meal, they feel like crap, and they can't, they're irritable. And I always say, if you want to know how healthy you are, skip a meal and see how you feel, because ultimately it's telling what your mitochondria is able to do, or not able to do, I should say. So, yeah, no, this is great. Well, listen, we're going to have you on again, because obviously,
after you get your Dexcom, so we can compare notes, man.
You haven't had enough time yet. We want this information. I mean, I've got to have it. This is really revealing. Real fast. I mean, just what are some of the things you've seen that surprised you with it? You're looking at your glucose all day. What do you? The berries was one of them, and the exercise.
Well, I initially got the Dexcom to confirm my theory of the optimal time for peak fasting, and I believe it's true because I can measure my blood sugar every 5 minutes, and I can see when it rises, so I know exactly when to eat now. So, and I also have to figure it out because I don't want to wear this sensor the rest of my life. Yeah. But it is pretty beautiful. The biggest epiphany I've had, I just shared with you, which I learned the last 2 days, was eating fruit during exercise. I don't think anyone has objectively documented that observation. To the best of my knowledge, it's not been documented. I think I've discovered it.
Or after didn't work. It was only the during. So,
because now, how many people are taking their blood sugar that frequently to find it out? I mean, it's very inconvenient to do a finger prick that many times.
Well, try it with something other than fruit. I want to and try it with other forms of exercise. I'm just curious. I just want to kind of get some.
I could. I actually wanted. I think I did. I don't know if I did discuss with you, but I picked up an EWAT machine, exercise with oxygen therapy.
Yeah, you
heard of.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, it's interesting. You work out for 20 minutes at your 80% of your maximum heart rate. In my case, is 118. It's basically reflected as your age, and which is a real easy pace. For someone especially who's been an athlete. So you do breathing 100% oxygen, or 99, 98%, because you have these oxygen concentrators. You're breathing in a mask from a bag, and then. And I do it in an elliptical, but you can do any activity as long as your heart rate gets to that level. And then for 4 minutes, you do that for 20 minutes, and then for 4 minutes, you do high altitude training where you have really virtually, very low concentration. So then you desaturate your blood, and then for another 4 minutes, you go 100% oxygen. So it can get literally levels of oxygen into your blood that are 10 to 20 times higher than the levels that you would see in hyperbaric chamber exposures.
Yeah.
So I've just started that. I'm really intrigued with it. I think it's going to be really useful. I'm very excited. I think it's a very good form of oxidative therapy.
Yeah, yeah.
And regenerating mitochondrial, improving mitochondrial biogenesis and mitophagy too.
So, are there any other foods like that you ate and saw? Whoa, that would my body.
No. As I was saying, 85% of my food is fat. So I don't see any influence about fat when I eat it during, before, or after exercise. It's just not.
Experiment. You're gonna have to step outside of your diet a little bit while you have that thing connected to you, because
No, I'm not stepping outside. I want to be healthy. I love the way my brain works. I love not having appetite. I love the way my body looks on this stuff.
Information. I want to see what other food.
No, I will experiment with higher doses of fruit. I might go into 90, 100, 200 grams of not net carbs, but fruit, total fruit. I've got mangoes I got literally 6 mango trees because I live in Florida, and they're just mango. I got hundreds of mangoes that will be in full bloom in about 6 weeks. So I'll have a mango experiment.
I would entice you to eat some grain. I'm going to afford it. Don't you want to eat grain?
No, I'm not eating grain. No. You can't force me to poison toxins. I'm not going to do it.
I'm not going to force you. I'm teasing.
No way am I doing that. I feel too good without it. It's crazy.
I want them to eat some GMO glyphosate-laden corn.
Not going to happen. So interesting that my first book that I ever wrote, which is also a New York Times bestseller, was the No Grain Diet. At the time, I did not like the title, and for 10 years I hated the title because I didn't think it was right. But now I'm so glad, because now I think it's right. I don't think anyone should be eating great.
Yeah.
From the perspective of metabolic, biological optimization of your mitochondria. And I've got enough of the science studied now that I think I could argue effectively with anyone who refutes that. Because there's no way they can deny what we find happening in the mitochondria. And it's all about having that clean fuel, because if you're eating dirty fuel, glucose derived from any of the grains, which are clearly going to get in higher concentrations, you are going to be creating more reactive oxygen species, causing more damage. No question about it. Dan, but I know we're getting close to time, but I forgot to mention one thing that everyone needs to know. This is going to be a chapter in my new book that I'm going to start promoting massively. Everyone watching this needs to know their iron level. Simply, do you teach them about that, the serum ferritin?
Yes, well, I teach my doctors that, but fire away.
Okay, so you've got to know your iron. There's no question. Because why? Because let's go into the molecular biology. What happens when you have high free iron in the mitochondrial inner membrane? You are going to catalyze the reaction of hydrogen peroxide to hydroxyl free radicals, which in hydroxyl free radicals will damage in a nanosecond mitochondrial DNA and mitochondrial membranes. So that is the worst, most highly reactive biological reactive oxygen species.
How about this, Joe?
What?
This will interest you. The cytodetox that you have and that I have are hemochromatosis patients. It's lowering like we've never seen. Much.
I will be checking it because I check my ferritin every month, so I will definitely objectively document that for you. But that doesn't mitigate it against the need of still doing regular donations. Now I know a lot of people can't, but then you do a therapeutic phlebotomy. I mean, if men, I think we need to donate at least 2 pints a year, collectively throughout the year. Maybe 2 to 3 if you want to stay healthy. Or I'm going to refine that recommendation based on the cytodetox. I don't know. I love it. I'm currently in the evaluation process of it. I've only been using it for a month or so, somewhere in that range. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I don't notice anything with it, but I sure the heck hope we all need what it does. If it, at least in theory, I'm going to confirm objectively with lab and other chemistries that it's doing that. So I personally, so.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's great. That's what we want too. So, it'll be interesting to see, because what we found with the hemochromatosis patients was a shock. Actually, we had no idea. But you're right. There's levels of iron.
Yeah, I have a minor type of hemochromatosis, which I have beta thalassemia, which has a high red cell turnover, which produces a similar syndrome as hemochromatosis. So it's a big issue. It almost killed my dad. I inherited the thalassemia from my dad, and sorry about that. All these people calling. It's a big issue for me, really big. So I'm just delighted to know that the cytodetox is going to facilitate that. But I still think it's going to help if you actually physically remove the iron with the blood, because you can get quite a few milligrams of iron out by doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's great. It's true information. I mean, it affects the mitochondria oxidation levels.
Yeah, yeah, and so how do you tell? The simple blood test is called serum ferritin, Ferritin, and it should be the same level as your vitamin D, which is about 40 to 60 nanograms per milliliter. Maybe a little higher for men, a little lower for women. 40 to 60, yeah, somewhere in there.
Yeah, 40 to 60, about the same as your the vitamin D.
Vitamin D. So it's easy to remember. It's
Yeah.
the same. It's the same units too. So most men have a ferritin about 130, 140, literally twice as much as what they should have.
Yeah.
And they really need to get aggressive. If I had a ferritin at 140, I'd be donating three units of blood a year until I got it down to 60.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually pull some of my old blood because when I was taking Cyto, my last one.
Yeah. Could you send me that data? I would love to see it. I would love to see it. Send me the pre and post ferritin levels. Yeah.
The data from the hemochromatosis coming in from my doctors because that's what we get. So, but
you have hemochromatosis?
No, I don't. I'm saying I had a blood. I'm gonna have to look at my old blood things and look at where my ferritin levels were because my last one was in the normal range. You know what I'm saying? It was.
Yeah. Well, no, wait. First of all, the normal ranges on the lab are wrong, absolutely wrong. It's just like the old cholesterol. When I graduated med school in '85, the normal range for cholesterol was anything under 300. Now you know what they are. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with them, but that just shows you how they change. The normal range for the ideal health range is 40 to 60 nanograms. They say anything below 200 is normal. That is such bunch of horse crap because they do not understand the pathology that occurs from elevated ferritin levels. They have no concept of it.
We use different ranges. We use the optimum range that you spoke of. So, but I'm wondering if it affected it. I want to see where it was before I started Cyto. So I'll let you know. I'm going to check it as soon as we get off the line here.
Yeah, send me the results too. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I'd love to see. I want to know. So yeah, great stuff, Dr. Joe. We appreciate you. We appreciate what you do for natural health, honestly, because we know that there is people. Look, the bigger you get in natural health, the more that we have to watch our back. The more that people come out.
Especially when you get aggressive and you take real strong activist actions like I do in fighting major issues like fluoride and GMO labeling and really calling out the drug companies when they're killing people. Like I was the first investigative journalist to warn people publicly about Vioxx, literally a year before it reached the market and killed 60,000 people. I warned people about it, but that was a $25 billion lawsuit from Merck, so they don't like it that I get on their tail. And that's just one example. There's literally dozens and dozens of others. So I'm cutting out billions of dollars from their revenues, and they're targeting me for sure.
Listen, and I know that, and we appreciate you. We appreciate the information you bring. You have changed healthcare. You have, Joe.
Well, I'm telling you, it's only a fraction of what's going to happen in the future. I've never been more excited about mitochondrial therapy than anything else in my previous.
Probably rarely do people bring you on and ask for you to talk about something like that, right? They want you to talk about some of the other things, right, that you're probably bored about. But this is something that we're very passionate on this show about. I've talked about the mitochondria and cell energy, and this is a topic that we talk a lot about. So my viewers and listeners absolutely can handle this higher end conversation, and finding out, we're the whole thing with the intermittent fasting and when to eat and how. This is great stuff, Joe. And like I said, I love it. Peak fasting, and can't wait to learn more. And I think we're going to learn more. So
it's amazing because because of my position in the health world, I'm able to connect with a lot of the experts real easily and communicate with them in dialogue, and really learn from all their years in the lab and clinical research. So it's really exciting to bring it all together. And guys like Ben Greenfield, I really have enormous respect for what he's doing. Yeah. So it's good. It's good.
Yeah. Well, we'll be together down in Dallas. We'll have a Mind Think there as well. So that's
remind me with Dallas.
September. That's a September conference. You and I are at.
No. That's Orlando.
Yeah, it is Orlando. Yeah, it is Orlando.
Yeah, I said, well, I'm going to be in Dallas too, like in October, but I didn't think we were going to be in that one. That's the Truth About Cancer conference. So.
Yeah, it is Orlando. So, well, I'm excited. So we will get together on another one, and we're going to keep Meredith. Make sure you stay on, Dr. Joe, and get him on. So another few months of using the Dexcom. and I think we're going to get some even more energy. So yeah, there it is. And maybe by then I'll have it. You're going to have to help me though, because
I sure hope so. I would be very disappointed. I'm going to spread some nasty, dirty rumors about Dan Pompa not being such a wimp he can't put the darn sensor into his belly.
I can't even talk about it. I can't even think about it.
It's so easy. I'll tell you, the amount of pain is very similar to what you do for your fingerprints. I mean, there's not much difference.
It's not that. It's just having it in there all the time.
Oh, geez, you never even know it's there. It's a non-issue. It's non.
I love this, Meredith. He's the only one that has the guts to come on the show and rise me like this. I like it.
Wait, Meredith, don't the other guests do this?
Well, you definitely stepped it up and challenged him a lot, and I like
it. Someone's got to do it. Someone's got to do it.
Exactly.
That's great. I have a lot of respect for you, Joe, so I'll take it from you.
Okay.
All right, we'll talk again, Joe. Thank you, and we'll have some offline conversations about this too. You're not off the hook.
All right. Good. All right. Bye.
Thanks for being with us, man. Thank you.
Bye.